Hey, Dad.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
You always take a big swig of whatever you're drinking right before we go live,
I got five, four, three, two, one.
and then you chug.
I
Welcome to our listening audience. Thank you for joining us. This is Discussions with Dad, Faith, Blood, and the in between. And as always, we start with our core promises. Dad and I like to remind ourselves and our listening audience that even when we disagree, that we are going to try to practice patience over love and certainty. We will tell the truth with care, and we will listen to understand, not convince, convert, or prove wrong. And as always, we also have to remind people that we like to believe that we're experts on everything, but we actually know a lot about everything. um, we really don't. We're our podcast reflects our personal opinions, and we're hoping to spark a dialogue with our friends, our loved ones, our neighbors, coworkers, colleagues. And we encourage you to seek guidance from a qualified professional if something we've said maybe triggers something that you want to take a deeper look at. Anything else you want to add, Dad?
No, I don't want to trigger anything.
I know. The word trigger triggers you.
It does.
I think we could have a whole episode just on the word trigger and why the word triggers you. Well, let's start there. Okay, so the funny thing is that in our core promises, we talk about practicing patience over love or certainty. Today's episode, the word certainty is in the title. I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you, but we'll start right there with the word trigger. Why does the word trigger you?
I guess it's because it's from a generation that triggers me.
that's
How's that for an answer?
Why do they trigger you?
No, I mean, it seemed like it was a word used by, it seemed like, to me, it was a word used by people who always wanted to be a victim. And so
Okay.
you trigger it, and all of a sudden you're the trigger, and they're the victim, and or you
Well,
triggered them and they're the victim.
that's an interesting conversation to have, because what I believe someone is saying when they are triggered by something is that they feel that the person in the conversation that is saying something that is polarizing to them is doing it maybe intentionally to take a
Trigger them.
jab at. To what?
To trigger them.
So then they're right. The generation that you're triggered by is right in thinking that they're being targeted. They're being triggered
Well, if
intentionally.
that's the case, if that's true the case, that's just an assumption on your part that would be the case. I
Okay.
mean, there's times I've said things to certain people that and had no intention of poking them or any ulterior motive, and it triggered them.
But what were you trying to get at, I guess, that triggered them? In other words, was there a different way
Well,
to ask the question?
oh, obviously there must have been. I just didn't do it. There must have been. But the thing is, I mean, that's assuming that I know what you're feeling inside all the time, and there's no way I can know that.
Well,
I
I'm
I
glad
mean,
that you say that, Dad, because that is a big part of, I think, today's discussion is the assumed knowing of others. And specifically when we get into having a conversation about radicals or extreme convictions on either side, and I mean on either side of any spectrum, any um, polarity whatsoever, whether it be political, religious, social, economic. There's a yin and a yang. There's a give and a take. There's a push and a pull. There's an ebb and a flow. And I always feel like when you're in the ebb, you can't see the flow, or when you're in the flow, you forget about the ebb, or when you're on top, you forget about the when you're at the peak, you forgot about the valley you started in sometimes.
right. That could be. But I think the ultimate thing is the attitude of your heart, and that is, if I'm saying something to you out of malice and trying to trigger you, that's
Hmm.
wrong. But if I'm saying something uh, that has no malice intended whatsoever, and it triggers you, that's a different thing, because I'm obviously obviously that's the worst type of it because both parties are then on the defense immediately, because I wasn't saying something to upset you, but it did. Okay.
So,
And
okay, yeah, I hear you. And there's a
you see
couple
what
of
I'm
things.
saying?
You said that's wrong, assuming that there's a right and a wrong in a dialogue already, I feel gives people someone in the conversation an upper hand, and someone in the conversation feels defensive or backed into a corner because we're looking for a right or wrong rather than me. What I said was not intentional, and hurting you was an outcome of what I said, but that wasn't done intentionally, is what you're saying. You think
Yes,
that.
but also what I'm saying very clearly is that if I'm doing that intentionally, it's wrong. It's wrong for me to be in a conversation with you and try and get your goat instead
So
of trigger.
to
I
so
think that's
you
wrong.
think socially it is wrong
It's mean.
to okay, so but we have a leader who's doing it.
Yeah. So it's wrong.
Right. So you see through when a leader, a president, a politician, a celebrity, just like you would expect an average Joe, not to provoke someone for the
Right.
sake of provocation.
Right. For the sake of provocation. If
Okay.
I'm asking you the question because I genuinely want to know your heart, genuinely trying to convey a point that I think is a good valid point, even though we disagree on that point, it's still a good valid point. But if I'm doing it just for the fact that it's going to upset you, then I shouldn't be doing it. And I'm guilty of
Okay.
that many times over.
All right. Well, that leads us right into our my first question for you. Do you
I'm
think
really good at segues. And I
uh,
didn't even do that. You didn't even prep me for that one.
no. Uh,
No.
There's nothing that you and I are better at than praising ourselves. And I think
Praising
that's
each other. Praising each other. We're
yeah,
better at that. Yeah.
yeah, I think so, but I think we like to validate ourselves. And maybe that's something that maybe that's something that the generation you're speaking of doesn't have access to, is the confidence to be able to validate themselves and look inward rather than looking for someone in society to validate them. There was an episode of Mad Men where the character that's played by John Hamm, he has an exchange with someone who happens to be female and a subordinate, someone who works underneath him and is doing above and beyond what all of the other men at her rank are doing in the workspace in the office. And this takes place in the 50s, and Mad Men, it's an advertising kind of agency.
Right. No,
Anyway, the John Hamm character turns to her. She goes in to like lodge her complaints, and he goes, "That's why I'm paying you," because it's a job, right? And
right.
I think that there is an expectation on Gen Z that because the job doesn't pay what they expect a job to pay after spending $100,000 to earn a bachelor's degree, I think that there is this assumed demand that they get what they're worth at 22. And it's different for that generation than even my generation. When I was 22, I knew I was in an apprentice program. I knew that I was going to have to work my way up and that I was going to be treated poorly and that I wasn't going to have the equal compensation to what my training and education cost. And I'm an artist, so that goes without saying. I don't think an artist, unless you're a movie star or you get to a level of art making that is so commercial or so in demand, you will never recoup the investment that you put into your education and art making process. That isn't the case for lawyers or doctors, or usually they will
For
recoup.
plumbers or
Plumbers, yeah,
electricians.
right. Tradespeople, there's always going to be a recouping. But I think that for the first time, this Gen Z feels like they will not have access to the same opportunities, even in fields like law or medicine. And if you think about it, with all the liabilities and with all of the and with insurance
Insurances.
prices, yeah,
Yeah.
it's I kind of I empathize for them.
Well, yeah, but yeah, two things. It's still a choice. Number one. No, number two. Back in my day, you weren't $200,000 in debt by the time you came out with a degree, and
Right.
obviously it was proportional. You might be in debt $30 or $40,000, but it was still way out of proportion now compared to what you make after you come out, as opposed to what we used to make. That's why they call it inflation. That's why the dollar is not as valued as it is, and so yeah, it's out of proportion now, definitely,
Right.
and that would be frustrating. That would be very frustrating to come out, being in debt that bad. One, knowing that you're going to be paying on that the rest of your life, possibly because it's like another house payment, and number two, possibly not even using your degree to do it. You might be doing something totally different.
Yes, I
But
agree.
there's choices involved.
Yeah.
There's
Okay,
choices.
so is there anything you believe so strongly that you would have trouble admitting that you were wrong? Not necessarily because of the belief itself, but because admitting you were wrong would change how you view yourself.
Yeah, you remember my cousin Vinny?
No.
You remember the movie My Cousin Vinny?
The movie, My Cousin Vinny. I thought you were asking if I remembered your
No,
cousin
no,
Vinny.
I have
I'm
no
like, you
cousin
don't have
Vinny.
a cousin
I
Vinny.
got a lot of cousins that are Italian,
I've
but not
never
not
met
a Vinny.
Vinny, but yes, I remember My Cousin Vinny. The great
And you
movie
remember when she was on the stand and
Marissa
and she
Tomei
goes,
wanna
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, she was wonderful, and she looked at that guy and goes, "That's a trick question." You remember that? And it was a trick question. It was
Well,
about a
because
three
the
twenty
the
seven.
car that was made in that time didn't have
Didn't
that
have a 327.
right.
That's right.
Okay, so
So I'm
why is it a
sure.
trick question? Why
Well, it's
why
a
do you
trick
think I'm
question because you're asking me my beliefs, and the only thing I could think of being wrong about would be my beliefs. Because if something's definite, if it's a definite thing and I'm wrong about it, then I'm wrong about it. And you can say, Dad, look, 2 plus 2 is 4, and you says it's 5. You're wrong. But the beliefs things that I believe, and I was trying to think of an example to tell you, and I really can't even think of an example. I mean, are we talking about being wrong about equals not believing what you believe? Is that does that make me wrong? And then I wouldn't admit to what you
well,
believe?
that's the question. I wonder if when someone shows you evidence of something that contradicts what you believed up until that point, would you acknowledge it or would you double down because
No,
you
I
don't
would
want to be
acknowledge it if
wrong?
it was sound, objective evidence. I would have to acknowledge it. But and I always think of in Bible terms, everything I see in the Bible, I totally believe, and I would not disbelieve that. And that's a belief system. That's not because there's some things, as you know, we've talked about that are not 100% definitive, depending even between Bible believing Christians that I can argue with them
So
about. No,
no, I agree. But so go playing off of that thought, then what it sounds like you're saying to me is anything that the Bible says you're believing is truth, even though those Christians alike will disagree wholeheartedly on certain interpretations of scripture and even how they apply the scripture, but you wouldn't be flexible in hearing something true about a politician and look at that evidence and say, "Oh yeah, I was wrong about that."
Oh no, I would definitely admit I was wrong about that. The problem with that is trying to get the evidence that's not tainted, or how can me and you as laymen get to that evidence? You know what I mean? Because there's so much crap being shown that isn't really evidence, and it is evidence. And we heard about all these things that were supposedly on both sides, 100%. This is the evidence, and it wasn't the evidence. And that's a $1 million question in our society right now. Look what Fauci's going through. What he's
Okay,
what he,
I'm glad you brought up Dr. Fauci because that's who I was thinking of when I'm listening to you respond. Because here's a man who, for 50 years, has worked for multiple, I mean, over 5 different presidencies. He presided and offered opinion and counsel and advice based on research and years of experience. And you and I both know that the scientific and the medical field are both constantly hypotheses just being proven right or wrong. And
right.
so you don't think that he's a man like any other man and had some things right in what he said and some things wrong, and in that situation, are you able to step out of your thought about what went wrong during COVID to say, look, the man tried to save as many people as he could?
Yeah, I mean, but see, that's one of them that we can't be definitive about. I can believe that. I can believe that. I don't know his heart. But but there's evidence proving that he making a mistake, which is humanly possible, or um, was he criminal in doing it? I don't know. I've not seen enough sides for me to say something like that. I don't know if we'll ever know, but you know what I mean. If
No,
you
but
weigh everything was presented to both of us, do we think he's criminal, or do we think
well,
he's,
but
hey,
what's
just a
being
man that made a
presented,
mistake?
to the algorithms that I watch versus the algorithms that like my mom watches, for example,
Right.
he's being painted as two different, completely different people. And
It
the thing
is.
is, both of these things, both of these versions of him are true. Both of these versions are true. He was a man
Could be.
who cared for, well, I know. I mean, look, you look at his record. He has a proven factual track record of implementing things that helped save people. At the
Right.
same time, he has a diary that, and we'll get
Looks
to,
bad. Yeah.
but why was that even exposed? Why was his personal, do politicians not have a right to privacy? And the interesting part is the person that brought forth that journal was the one that was all about Republican congressional privacy. So
First
what,
of all,
so when it's
first
someone
of
else,
all,
an opponent, you, no rules apply?
no. But first of all, he's not a politician. He was.
Who's not a
That was a
politician?
Fauci's not a politician.
Not a politician, even more a private citizen, a doctor.
Well, no, he's an appointed. He's an appointed public servant.
Okay, he's an appointed public servant. So appointed public servants don't have a right to privacy.
Well, of course they do.
So it,
Of course they do.
the fact
But
that his
let me give
private
you an
journal
example.
was read to the Congress, I think, or whomever that was in that hearing, I think that's a breach of privacy. And so I would
Could
think
be.
that people on the right
I
would
can.
care about that more.
I couldn't argue with you about that. But I know when I was chairman of the Colorado State Plumbing Board, everything I said was recorded. We got to a point where everything I said was recorded, and
Yeah.
was public knowledge.
But you
And if
opt into that. You're in a meeting having a conversation. You didn't bring your private journal from home and let
I would
someone
have never
read it.
kept a private journal, that number one, I
Well,
would have never kept a private
okay, but
journal.
look who you're talking to. We've already shared this
Yeah,
on this podcast
yeah, you
where
journal like crazy.
from the time I was in 8th grade, I started journaling and I journal every day. I write.
Before that, you used to write stuff down in grade school. I don't know if you kept it, but you used to
No,
always write
right, but I have my journals from 8th grade on. I mean, I have every journal and
right.
that I wrote from 8th grade on. And the thought of it getting into someone's hands and being used against me, I write random things in my journal. Some things are
That'd
not
be
even
the
real.
best
Some
thing.
things are abstract. Some things are something I want to manifest. And so I thought it was a gross
How
violation
did it
of his
get into
right.
people's hands? I don't even know the story behind it. How did it get away from him?
Regardless of how it got there, is it
Well, no,
right
I mean that's a
for,
big deal. I mean, because obviously, if he had it at home in his safe and someone broke in and took it, that's wrong.
well, of
But if
course we know that's wrong. So is bashing the head of a sitting congressperson or senator's spouse, but that didn't stop them from going after Nancy Pelosi's husband. I mean, bad things happen to
right,
politicians and public figures. My
yeah,
question
I don't
is
know.
not about what the bad thing that happens. It's how does the right feel about, because I know how mom feels about it. She thinks it's hilarious and that it was admissible and all of these different things. But
I don't think it's
why?
hilarious, but if it helps point out the truth of what really happened back then, as far as the Wuhan lab or the fish market, I would like to know. I would like
How
to
does
know that.
revealing someone's personal secrets,
I don't know.
we already established that a journal can be anything. It could be completely fictitious. It could be a work of fabrication. So how does that corroborate anything that is being alleged by the right?
Well, he had a chance to answer to that, and took the fifth. So we may never know. He had the opportunity to answer that and say, "Hey, yeah, this was my fantasy, and I was writing my fantasies down." He could have said a
Wouldn't
million different things.
wouldn't you,
He
if
chose
someone
not to.
stole something illegally from you, wouldn't you from then forward not trust anyone?
Well, I don't know if they stole it from him.
He just handed it over to let them read.
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
I don't think that happened, Dad. I think
I
it was
don't know.
nefarious.
I don't know what
Well,
happened. I don't know how.
it wasn't handed over willingly. We
I
know that,
I don't know what happened. He might have sold it. He might have
Dad.
sold it for money that we
Dad,
don't know. I don't know.
this is where you're choosing
I
not
don't know
to,
what happened. I'm telling you, you can't hear me say I don't know what
whether
happened.
you know or not what happened about how it got into the hands. Are you willing to say that you think it's wrong that someone's personal, private information should not be public access, especially if it was begotten nefariously?
If it was begotten illegally, yes, I agree with you. I do
Okay.
agree with you.
I
Number
mean,
two,
that
but
would be
if you're being tried or before Congress, then any information you said in the past, that's just like saying a murderer who wrote down when Bundy was keeping track of all that stuff, his stuff isn't admissible. If you're being accused of a crime,
if you're being accused of a crime,
right?
there's a judge and the DA goes and
No,
tries
there's
to,
not always a
no.
judge first. You now he's going to have to be faced with a judge because they are going to hold him in contempt. Oh, I think they're going to hold him within contempt. I don't know, but it's
So
not funny. I don't think it's funny. I think it's
due
a
process did
tragedy.
not happen to Dr. Fauci in this
Not
instance.
yet. It will. It sure will.
It didn't, because he's already been skewered publicly on in front of a
That
congressional
happens to
hearing.
everybody, and it's wrong. But the fact is, he still gets his day in court. No matter
Okay.
what, he'll get
All
his
right.
day
Well,
in court.
let's leave this there.
Let's leave Mr.
My
Fauci
question
out.
is, you and I both have strong what's that?
I go. Let's leave Mr. Fauci Fauci.
I
It's
it's
almost
funny.
irrelevant now. It's almost irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant to me that half of
Let me
this
finish my
country
thought.
who
Let me finish my thought. It's almost irrelevant now, except for the fact that if it leads to us preventing it from ever happening again, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, I don't want someone in that position to be able to possibly sway what he swayed anymore, ever.
Dad, I mean, you have just said the thing that every single elected official or appointed official does. You said you don't want it to happen anymore. So I mean, from the dawn of the creation of
The
Greek,
Congress.
no, from
Correct.
Greek and Roman tribunals. I mean, people do things to sway things. I think that's absurd. What I'm fascinated with is that half of this country who claims that they want smaller government and privacy and the government out of their business had no problem with was a former Republican, now independent, taking someone's private journal and reading it out loud. I think is interesting to me that
Who
the
did get that?
Republicans don't
Who
care.
did get the journal?
It's Ron Paul or whatever his name
Rand
is,
Paul.
Rand Paul,
Rand Paul. Yeah. Okay.
whose
Yeah. You
father
see,
was like,
I'm not. I'm really not up on this subject. I'm really not. I. You know.
that's okay. It's
It
not
doesn't.
important. The thing the thing that's important is the hypocrisy we talked about in the last episode, which I really like that we talked about the hypocrisy of it all. It's so blatant in an instance where Dr. Fauci's private journal is being read in front of a Congress. It's the hypocrisy of the right saying that they want privacy and private and small government so that we can maintain our privacy and our freedom, yet they have no problem reading someone's journal when it makes them look or prove their point.
Well, it could make it, that could be wrong that way, but if it points to his criminal activity, I have no problem with it.
I
If
don't
it
know
was
how
if it was criminal activity,
any good lawyer worth their weight in salt would have it thrown out as a book of fiction because it's his private musings. I would as a lawyer I would go in there and be like, he was working on a fantasy book and this was the rough draft of the fantasy book.
yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
the stupidest
why
thing I've
didn't he
ever
do
heard.
that? He took the fifth. His lawyer, he had five lawyers, and they told him to
He
take the
took the
fifth.
fifth because he's a smart man. They already stole the book from him. Why would you open your mouth and say anything? You took this illegally. Let's go to a judge and have them throw it out because
How do you know that they took it illegally? That's
he took the fifth, Dad. Why would you plead the fifth? If it were taken, if he handed it over, he'd say, "Yeah, I said that. Yeah, I wrote that." Someone took the book from him,
right.
gave it to someone, and they read it in front of Congress. So his lawyers, like any good lawyer would do, told him plead the fifth, and we'll have a judge throw this out. They had no right to invade your privacy. It's kind of
Or
like those
he
flock
leaked,
cameras.
and this is
Everyone's all
pure.
up in arms in the flock cameras, and yet it's
This
the
is
same thing. It's the
this
same
is
thing.
this is pure hypothesis, just like what you're doing, hypothesizing. But listen to this hypothesis. He
Okay.
knew what was going to come down. He knew what they were looking for, and they probably could have subpoenaed it if
But they
when they
didn't.
found out. Now wait, let me finish my thought. I let you
Okay.
rant and rave. he subpoenaed it, or they were going to subpoena it, and he says, let's leak it, let's get it out there, and then I'll take the fifth, and they can't do anything about it. You don't know what's at
He
play
could
here,
have
and
done that. You're right.
he could have done that.
You're right. He could have
I
done
don't
that.
know. I don't know.
He does
He
love a
could be that
celebrity.
smart. He could be that smart. Well, let's just leak it out, and then I'll take the fifth. Who cares?
But see, here's the thing where you don't get to play the hero and the victim in the same sentence kind of thing.
You can't.
If he's either that smart or he's really stupid, but you don't get to be both. And the
Right.
right sees him as a stupid idiot, but smart enough to, I don't know, like
He
to
might
manipulate
be.
them. I don't know.
He might be that smart. He took the
Maybe.
fifth. To be continued. To be continued.
He continued. Okay, so do you and I both have
Not
strong
that we're
convictions?
disagreeing. We're
No, I
not
know.
even disagreeing about this. We don't know.
So
Right.
you and I both have strong convictions.
Right.
What keeps us from becoming extremists about the things we believe?
On common sense. Just plain
What is
old
common
common sense.
sense? Go
Intelligence and
deeper.
common sense.
Common sense says that you're not going to become an extremist even though you have
No, because when I
deeply.
hear extreme crap, my crap detector goes off, and I say that's crap. Bill Maher's a prime example. He could be an extremist, and he was to some extent farther right, or I'm sorry, farther left than anybody else. But finally, his BS detector went off. He goes, "Wait a minute, this sounds like BS." When I hear stuff from your relatives that are far right and say things that are crazy, I go, "No, no, that's BS." I think it's just to have a little common sense, think it through, and when it sounds like crap, it probably is crap. You
And
know,
then in the same breath you'll say, well, anything's possible because a politician will do this or that, or they'll lie or they'll sway. So
anything's
who
possible, but is all things probable? I don't know. I can't answer that, Matt.
Okay, so can you pull someone out of an extreme belief without first understanding where the belief is coming from and why they believe
Man,
it?
that's hard. That because radicalism is a really, I mean, that's hard. That is really hard. And the other thing is, again, we're both people of faith. We were talking about how we like to pat ourselves on the back. That's true, but I try to be on certain things as humble as I can be, and you have to be humble, especially about relationships, especially about what we talk about. You have to be a little bit humble. I mean, we're called to be humble, and I don't know everything. I don't know what was going through his mind. I, I don't know that we'll ever know. And I think about that in all cases. That's
So
I
uh,
think that helps me not be so extreme. I think being a little bit humble helps, and I'm not as humble as I should be, but being a little bit humble, I think, keeps me from being so stinking extreme that, like your mother,
well,
you know,
but hold
which
on. I think some people listening and people there are people now that have checked in and they've listened to all of the episodes. I think some people would feel you're extreme on your adamant stance of what you look for in a candidate and how you feel about pro life in a free country. And some people that aren't religious and believe in the First Amendment and freedom to express or not a religious viewpoint would say you're an extremist when it comes to what a woman does with her body
could be,
when
they, they
a
could be.
baby is growing inside.
I could be labeled that. You're right. I could be labeled that, but at least I have a reasonable reason that I've given you of why I feel that way, and
Okay.
it's not because I'm mad at that faction. No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
your reasoning is God.
exactly, exactly.
Okay,
Well,
so
wouldn't you call? Wouldn't you? I'll bet people did call Christ an extremist. I know the Sanhedrin and all of the Pharisees believed he was crazy and an extremist. He said he was the
right,
Son of God.
right.
So I mean,
So is it possible in a free country to have a freedom of religion and a freedom of no religion?
yeah, it is. Sure, it is. We're
And
doing it right now.
are we doing it well? Are we governing that way?
I have no idea. I can't answer that. It all depends who's in office, I
Well,
guess.
right now, do you think we're governing under a freedom of religion, or do you think we're governing under an expectation of a religion that the framers used and we haven't evolved from?
Yeah, well, that would be devolve instead of evolve in my eyes. You can use the word evolve. I would say we would devolve from it.
But you're talking from a non-secular position rather than a
Exactly.
freedom.
Exactly.
But
Which there's no
but
other
we
way I
live
can
in a
talk. I
country that
can't.
is.
I can't talk any other way. I don't know any other way.
You do, and you have, and we don't
No,
live.
I
You
haven't.
don't live in a You don't live in a non-secular society. You live in a secular society. You trade with people that don't believe in God. You work
My,
alongside people that
I
don't
know, but
believe
I'm
in
talking
God.
about my belief. Yes. Yeah.
Right, but your belief is allowed in this free country. Your belief would not be allowed in, let's say, Afghanistan.
No, no, it wouldn't
Okay,
be. And
so
that
but
it's
you
almost like,
don't want that here.
but so is Islam. And that's right. So is Islam allowed in this country, and they can pray and they can do everything they want to
Right.
do,
So and they are, and
and they
they're
are.
chanting for the death of Jewish people, which is
Now that's wrong. That's
such a
wrong.
problem for me and such a hypocritical. Any well-educated leftist who is for the people of Palestine, I totally hear you, and I want the freedom of the Palestine, the people that are we call Palestine. I want their
Palestinian.
Palestinian. I want their freedom as well. I want their freedom from their own persecution, from their own leaders, from their people that are keeping them in encampments rather than using the money for aid and shelter instead of building tunnels to kill people. I would love them to use that money to liberate their women and children. There's obviously a reason they're not. We will go into that, but
One of these
that
days we have to do a whole podcast on that.
that that kind of ideology is starting to gain traction here in this country.
Hmm.
I don't know that, or I wonder what you think about if we are so convicted in staying true to the core principles of the Judeo Christian faith as a template for moral into ethical laws, governing laws, then why wouldn't someone come here who's an extreme radical Islamist and say, look, you're already doing it with the Judeo Christian guys. Why can't we do it with Sharia law?
Well, the Constitution gives them that right, except Sharia law invokes things against women and gays and and people that are not people that have some
Christians,
type
black
some type
people. I mean, uh,
yeah. I mean, and especially against women. I mean, if you can't, and against gays, if you can't see that, how detrimental that would be to our people, our women, and our gay
to not
population.
our women, to all women. Women
All women, yeah,
everywhere are
all
being
women. Oh,
subjugated by
yeah, oh no,
radical
the
Islam.
Palestinian women that have to be that way. Well, you see it every day. You see people, women from Iran, saying, "You guys don't want this." So
Yes.
if it circumvents the Constitution, then no, you can't do it.
Okay. So we got all of that out. My question then again, in a free country like the United States of America, where you are allowed to practice a religion or not, do you think that your stance on pro life could be your stance without it being a governed or a law
From
that's
Christian,
set in stone?
sure, because there's people that are pro-life that aren't Christian, and they call it murder, and it's just the Constitution doesn't allow you to murder someone. Our laws don't allow you to murder someone, and that could be a religious belief or a non-religious, because there are non-religious pro-lifers that believe you.
You're not answering, or maybe you don't understand what I'm asking. In religious, in the Bible, conception begins, or birth begins right at conception. The life begins when birth, like that's
Actually, that's
life.
not true. Actually,
Okay,
that's
then
not true.
explain.
In the Bible, God came out and said, "I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb."
Yes.
You remember
Okay.
reading that? Yeah.
Yes, I
So he
understand.
knew
But
Matthew
Dad,
Schaefer
again,
before you.
Dad, I'm trying to get to the root of the core of the ideology of a Christian is that you believe that at conception life begins.
Yeah, definitely.
The Constitution didn't agree with that, and for a long time said that life doesn't begin
No,
until
no,
the
no,
baby is
no,
born.
no. The Constitution did never change. It's never changed. No amendment was written over that. What happened was the
It was
Supreme Court
argued.
received a hearing on Roe v. Wade. Okay, and like I said now a million times when we've gotten into this, it's now up to the states, and I don't know what the numbers are. You're gonna have to look it up one of these days. Is there
No, I
28
don't want to.
states?
It's not about the numbers. I'm more curious about The point is, like, your where you believe in your faith has radicalized you into an idea that that has to be implemented in a free society, in a
Well, you're
democratic
trying.
republic.
I understand that, man, and you're trying to compare what a Christian believes about pro-life to what a Muslim believes about his convictions, and
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
going
I'm
to.
not comparing Christians to Muslim convictions whatsoever. I'm saying that Muslims can
Okay,
exist here and have their beliefs. Christians can exist there and have their beliefs. And so can agnostic and atheist people exist here
yes,
and have their beliefs.
I
But
believe that.
we're
Yes,
legislating off of Judeo Christian morals, not ethics that have been agreed upon, inclusive of all faiths or no faith.
I would say my answer to that is some states are and some states aren't,
Okay,
and
we'll
some
leave it at that for now. I
there you
agree
go.
with
You,
that
you
for
understand?
sure.
Yeah, good.
Um,
Hey,
why no, 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 you don't get a high five. I disagree with you,
high
but I believe with
five.
how the law is written right now, the states have the right to decide. I don't think that in the long run that serves us as the United States of America. I think federally recognized ideas are much easier to implement in the states that are really not wanting to implement those things for the people that are stuck in those states. And we've talked about people that don't have access to the things that they want in a state but don't have the way to get out of it. So if you're in a state that has
I
a
understand
very
that.
conservative point of view and you were born there and you can't get out of there, you're kind of screwed unless the federal government says
Well,
something
all of
otherwise.
us, all of us have to answer that question. Colorado has become very, very liberal, and we've talked about moving
But
because
you
I don't.
have the means to move.
Right.
Right.
Everybody has the
Okay.
means to move, and
No, not
busing is
everyone
good.
does. I'm sorry, Dad. No, I don't think a single 26-year-old mother of three who's living in Alabama or Mississippi and who's working three jobs and sending her kids to daycare, doing whatever she can to put food on the table, has the means to relocate. I just don't think that's true. I don't.
And you brought
Where
this
do
up,
they
and I
go if they have no family? Do you know how much it costs to even just first of all, how do you get approved for a rent in an apartment? How do you find a car if you don't have a car? What if she's taking the city bus? How do you like I think you have to take it a step further and realize that there are so many people in this country that are not just living
well,
paycheck
how
to
is she
paycheck.
affected by that law if she doesn't get pregnant again?
What if
How is
it's not
she?
her? What if it's her son? What if it's her 16-year-old gay son?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
you mean
People
got
struggle.
pregnant?
No, or is gay and is being targeted. I'm not speaking again.
I
You're
don't
stuck
know of
on
anything in the South that's that going on because they're gay,
Dad,
unless
you're
you're in the
stuck.
Muslim
Dad,
community.
you're stuck in an idea of you need something to be happening right now as proof, or that I'm saying there are people in this country in underserviced or minority areas or low income areas where they don't have the means to leave just because the law changes or there's a new appointed governor or a new mayor. Like they can't just pick up and move across to a more inclusive state. And
So what?
that's all
So
I'm asking you to acknowledge.
what's your remedy to that? Is
I
your
don't
remedy?
have a remedy to it. I'm
Okay,
just saying
I know
it's
what
not.
I don't know. Okay, let me be fair about this. I don't know exactly what the remedy would be, but I know one thing the remedy is not, and that is for the United States government to have more power to tell the states what to do. Again, we don't want the United States federal government to have that kind of power. So it's following right in with
You don't want the
conservatism.
federal government to have that kind of power until there's a journal that's written and put in front of the Congress for congressional testimony when it makes someone that you disagree with and isn't an extremist on your side look bad. Then you
No,
want the federal
I'm talking
government to
about
have to exert their power.
no, I'm talking about the abortion issue.
I'm not talking about the abortion issue.
Well, I am.
You keep going to abortion, and that's where you are really like a dog with a bone, not letting go of. It's not about abortion. It's about any idea that disagrees with what you believe, whether
No.
because of faith or
So what other
politics.
federal? I want the federal government to stay in their lane. I want the state governments to stay in their lane. That's what I
And
want.
unless you need
What?
evidence for Dr. Fauci.
No. Was the federal government legal? Does the Constitution allow the federal government and the Congress to do what they did? It does. Sorry, that's the law.
It allows for them
Change
to
the law.
read something that was
I don't.
stolen
You
from
don't know
someone's
that. You keep
private.
saying. You keep speculating all these things about a raid, about stolen. You
I'm
don't
not
have any
speculating anything.
idea. You don't have any idea. You
Dad,
don't have any
neither
idea.
do you. So why are you
I
giving the
know
benefit of the doubt to the people that would be stealing something and reading a private journal in front of,
because I
like,
think
you're the party of.
because I think he probably gave it to him and decided to declare the fifth. Maybe he let it leak out. That's what I'm telling you. You don't know. You shouldn't speculate, son, like that. I really don't think you should.
Dad, you speculate by doing the opposite, and you don't hear it. This is the question that I'm asking you, that you don't hear, that you're so convicted in your belief on your side that you don't want to hear that someone in Alabama can't just pick up and go when the federal government bounces her protections and says, okay, it's back on the state now, and the state makes it worse for her. You don't want to even acknowledge that, and that's confusing to me from
Well,
someone who
I'm
claims.
confused by you going back and forth to state and federal uh, to, 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 to strengthen your case when I don't want the federal involved in any of it. Let the state handle it.
But the federal government is involved when they read in a congressional hearing.
Because that was a federal employee, not a person living in Alabama with 3 kids. He was a federal employee appointed by a federal uh, uh, president into
Right.
that position. So of course that's a federal thing. Now,
And it's okay to invade the privacy when it's federal.
I don't know that they invaded privacy. I'm not going to go that far. You keep saying that, but I don't know if they did or not, and we may never know. We may find out if they indict him. We'll find out. He might cave, and who knows, or he might be vindicated 100%. In which case, our laws and our
Okay,
Constitution work
so
like it should.
he was not hacked. It was not a physical diary. It was secretly taken. It wasn't secretly taken from his home. It was recovered via a government computer record search because he emailed an electronic diary to himself using his
Oh,
government email. So
he used a government
he's an
email.
idiot.
Yeah. Why? Okay. Yeah.
That's why
Oops.
Hillary had a private server. That's why Trump has a private server.
Yeah. I'm sure
Okay.
that
Okay. Dr. Fauci is
Fauci wasn't smart enough to have a private
is
secretary.
is
Well, I'm
well,
glad you looked at it. I am so glad you looked that up. You just made my day.
it,
Oh
it
my.
it makes me even more disappointed in who we appoint, especially someone who is as celebrated and who has worked, like I said, in so many presidential cabinets or alongside presidents. I don't know that he's ever been in a cabinet,
Matt,
but
Matt, Matt. J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI for I don't know how many years. You can look that up. And
I,
he
I,
was
I
one
know,
of the biggest
I know,
corrupt
but
crooks
yes, this is
ever.
what this is what we're having
Time
a
and
conversation about.
time and
What?
service doesn't mean
Okay,
anything.
okay, it does mean something. It does.
It means you were corrupt
It's
for a really long time,
right.
or you were good for a really long time.
I don't think that very many people are that good in what I'm learning in government.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Why do
that
you
statement.
think? Okay, wait. So if so you don't think that you can pull someone out of their radical belief? I know you've tried with someone we both know.
Yeah, yes. No, of course you can. Anyone can be redeemed. Anyone can be
It's not
redeemed.
about redemption. It's my question
Well,
is.
I think it is about redemption. Who wants to be labeled a radical? I mean, a
It
radical as
depends on what
far as a plague on society. I don't want to be that
a
way. I don't.
radically positive person. You can label me that.
Well, but you know what I'm saying. You
I
know
do.
what I'm looking at. I think.
Okay, so let me ask you this: why do you think people would rather be certain and wrong than uncertain but still questioning?
That's that question. I don't know how. I mean, how can you? It's like talking about creationism and evolution. You know, there's Carl Sagan was certain of evolution, and there's many scientists that are certain of evolution, and there's many more coming out now. And I sent you some reels, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit, that are
Mhm.
certain that there's no way it could have been evolution because of this, and more things happening. And so, I think unless it's very objective, it's hard to it's hard to take a stance on that. How can you take a stance on that? I mean, I personally take a stance on it. I base it off certain things, but how can I be dogmatic about the fact that you don't believe that? Or I think that's all I can do. It's the same thing as being an atheist or a believer. All I can do is give you my side of the facts and let you Investigate and do it on your own. That's all you can really do. And I don't think you should. What I don't like is for us to be mean about it or hateful about it or anything. I don't think that serves a purpose for anybody. I really
No,
don't.
I agree. I agree with you. I like hearing you say this. It's what I believe to be true of you and any conversation or relate the relationship that you and I have had my whole life. But then sometimes you'll say things and you say them so adamantly and so with disdain or with almost an attack on an entire group of people. You don't do it as much, but when we first started the podcast, you would say something about, well, everyone on the left, or and it's like, well, no, I don't think everyone on the left thinks a certain way.
That could
But
be. That could be. And like I said, I'm a human. It's probably too prideful sometimes when I get that way, that I shouldn't be that way. That's why I say if you're a little bit humble and a little bit better Christian, you won't be that way.
okay, so why do you think it's easier to recognize radicalization on another side when it's happening among people rather than when it's happening on with people that we agree with? In other words, uh we can see how easily the a lot of people on the left are becoming radicalized into this idea that the Jewish people are somehow trying to take away from the Muslim faith or the Muslim community, when in fact it's the opposite of that that's happening. And I'm not saying all Muslims are doing this. I'm saying
Right.
radical Islam is calling for chaos and
Death and chaos. That's
yeah,
exactly
death
right.
and
You said
chaos.
it perfectly. Yeah, well, because you just have to look at the factions and see what they're doing. Me going to an abortion clinic, and I'm going back to abortion only because it's easy to use for that as an example, and standing on the corner and holding up a sign and saying Jesus loves you and all that good stuff. As long as I do that and I'm not hitting people over the head or you know using any physical violence, in other words, just like we always said, a peaceful protest. Well, I mean, it's so easy to see that Islam does not do that. It just happened last week in Dearborn. Terrible. But what's really sad and what really shows who's radical and who's not is the Christians in Nigeria, because there's 100,000 of them or more now that have been killed, that are just dying. And talk about a genocide. There's a true genocide, and no one on the left is talking about it. No one on the left is saying anything about it. You don't see it on any of the left news shows or anything. And now we're over 100,000. Well, I take that back. Bill Maher again. He's the one, and you've seen you probably saw the cat when he said, "Why is the left not talking about this genocide?" That's a radical faction of Islam that's killing 100,000 people. There's no Christian organization killing 100,000 Muslims. There's no
No.
so-called
But
so.
that's that is what I'm driving at, is why do you think, I wonder if, let me change the way that I'm gonna present this. I wonder if well educated people that align themselves with the left and the ideology that we want an inclusive and equitable society, and that we want people in power to be taken off of those positions if they're corrupt or whatever. I wonder if they look at the Christian right and think, you're so radical, you're so Islamophobic, that you are trying to convince us that these otherwise peaceful people that are just protesting for their life and have been shunned out of every country are just trying to find refuge here, and are trying to be seen as equal.
No, I lost you. Are you talking about the Somalians that came here,
I'm
or,
talking about the Somalians. I'm talking about maybe any Muslim that has immigrated here in the last decade and has taken favor or has received um, support, solidarity with people on the left in terms of marching, protesting.
yeah, if they
Uh,
protest privately, that's guaranteed them by the Constitution. That but if you're not protesting,
no, but what I'm asking is, do you think that there's a reason that well educated people that are mostly on the left are aligning themselves with Islamic radicals rather than Christian radicals?
Yeah, but I mean, again, this goes back to spiritual warfare and faith. Yeah, I do think there's a reason.
uh, keep it out of
I
the
can't.
non-secular. Yeah,
I don't have an
you
answer for the
can't.
secular
Y- Really?
because it makes no sense to me. It makes no
It,
sense to me that an
but you have
educated
people in your
person.
own family that fall into this category, so you're just going to automatically just write them off as doing a
If they
deal with the
believe that
devil.
October 7th wasn't a demonic spiritual force that caused them people to go and kill all those people in Israel, yeah, then I'll write them off because there's no other way around. There's no other way around. You ask what makes us think that way. Well, because of their actions. Their actions. They went and killed 17, 1800 people that were dancing, and having fun at a thing. Yeah, that's a little bit too extreme for me.
But
Now, if
they
they'd
have
have went
been
to the bo-
but the
if they'd
but
have went to
the
the border and
Palestinian people have been stuck in Gaza with nothing, and take everything was taken away by these people allegedly.
yeah, yeah, no, Islam took it away. Hamas took everything away from their own people, built tunnels, just like you said a little while ago, and did all this stuff to themselves and
So
to their
you
people.
so you think that wealthy, they're usually wealthy, well-educated, mostly white, liberal Americans would rather align themselves with Islamic radicalists over Christian radicalists because of the devil?
It's got to be something spiritual, Matt, because I don't think a person who's got common sense and any brains at all would do that. When they know what's going on, they saw what's going on in France, Spain, and England. Even England now is changing. Poland won't let anyone in. There's got to be something going on that I can't explain, other than the fact that, like I told you a long time ago, and it goes back to biblical. Ishmael and Isaac are going to be against each other all the days of their lives forever. And that's
I understand from a Christian perspective that's what Christians believe. What
right.
I'm curious to really try to figure out is how easy it was for someone who is well educated and and does have, a free thinking mind, how they would rather align themselves with and believe something that we see, like you said, unfolding on the world stage. And slowly it's gone from one nation to over 50, where the reigning rule of law is Islam, and women are kept
103 nations,
and
103 nations.
women are kept, but these
They're
well
better
educated.
colonizers than any European
Oh,
country
okay.
ever was.
Well, these well-educated people are so angry with Christians that maybe they believe that
I don't know what they believe.
Christians are making this an issue of, this is what the Bible said, so that's why we're and maybe these
Could be.
well-educated people are trying to stand up for these persecuted Palestinians.
Could be. How's that working out for them in Dearborn?
I don't know. I don't live in Dearborn. I don't know how
Well,
much of what we see on our algorithms is real and how much of it is staged to get a rise out of you, to trigger you.
how's it working out for the Jews in New York right now? You know,
You asked that question, Dad, and a lot of my Jewish friends in New York, they feel okay and comfortable and voted
well,
for Mandami,
we'll see how that works out for them. Only time will tell.
right?
Only
I
time will
mean,
tell.
I wonder though if people on the left who once, like, queers for Palestine, I wonder if those people have done a little research and maybe evolved from their extreme connection or ties to a group of people that would sooner have you
Thrown off
yeah,
a building.
yeah.
No, come on. No, I mean, you're asking the wrong person because I do have the belief of what I have. It would be nice if you could write into Bill Maher and let him answer that, or to Fetterman and let him answer that, because those are left guys that are fully left and fully love the Democratic Party for what it used to be, and maybe they can answer it because they see it.
Well, I think the left, if you're talking from a political, like, if I think Bill Maher would probably say a version of their pandering. They're pandering to the extreme fringes of a younger generation who wants a world reset.
There, you just answered it. There you go.
But
Now,
I don't know that that's.
and I think that's
I wanted
100%.
your take on it.
Well, my take is on it. The world reset is predicted and will come, and Satan is involved with the world reset. So there you go. Now,
Okay.
how you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We got to the
Uh,
same point.
if someone you loved started moving towards an extreme group or ideology, what would you do?
What do you mean? It's already happened.
I
You know
know.
that.
So what did you do?
I loved them through it. I loved them
Do you
through it.
still have conversations with them?
Yeah, of course.
Are they superficial or do you have real
No,
conversations?
no, no. They're not superficial. They're. I mean, obviously, um, things happen that probably won't be settled until enlightenment comes on both sides. And like I said, we will see. I really believe that a lot of that stuff's going to work itself out in our country when people start seeing exactly what's truly happening. Like Britain, it took a long time, but now look what the marches are in Britain. And the British sat back for a long time, and and yeah, man,
Well, but
I
they've
took.
also okay.
Go ahead.
Um,
So
I
yeah,
was
I still think no matter what you can't. Would I write off someone like that and say they're not in my family because of that? Never, not in a million years. You know,
so
no.
when a disagreement, when something so absolutely contradictory to what you know to be true comes up, how do you resolve it?
Well, not very well. I
Yeah.
didn't resolve it very well, but
Okay.
I never got mad. I never said hurtful things that weren't true. In other
Okay.
words, and that and I still entertained the fact that you can come and talk to me anytime about it, and I will tell you again what I think and how I feel about it. And I think that's the only way you can do it is try to be as truthful. I want to tell the truth no matter what. I've always told the truth to you, always. When we had our conversation in the coffee shop, I told you the truth, but I didn't ever stop loving you and never stop being proud of you for what you've accomplished. You can't call yourself a Christian and do it any other way. You can't. And that's what's going to be so telltale about this country. And we're going to see it. I think you're going to see it like I've been telling you. They say we're 70% Christian. I don't think we're close to that. But when that all happens, you're going to find out there's going to be people who call themselves Christians that take up arms and do. They're going to wake up a bunch of people that they don't want to wake up. That's what I'm afraid is going to happen in our country
Wait, that
because
was confusing. Say it in 30 seconds. I don't understand what you're alleging.
I think they're pushing the buttons of people they don't want to push, and I'm not talking
Who
about
are pushing buttons of who they don't want to push?
the Islamic movement is pushing the buttons of people who are really not going to take it well.
I see
And
what you're
Texas
saying.
is going to be you'll see what's happening in Texas right now.
Well, I mean, I would hope that, and this goes back to the younger generation that celebrated Luigi Mangione shooting a CEO because he didn't get what he wanted. I'm hoping that these same people that want peace and don't want war and want to free the people of Palestine will also understand that, you know, there are checks and balances for a reason. You can't just get a massive reset
I'm
because you're
afraid
triggered by the fact that someone disagrees with you.
that won't happen. That's my biggest fear.
Well, we'll see. Okay, so at what point does quote these are my people, like this is my tribe, become everyone outside of my people, my tribe is the enemy? How do you think we're there?
No, I don't think we're there. But also, I think a Christian can't have that point of view.
Okay, so what do you think the point of view? Well, I agree with you, by the way. I don't think anyone should have that point of view, but I think that's where we are right now. I think anyone not wearing my jersey is an opponent.
Can you be against something and not want to hurt it? Is the physically harm it? Is the real question you're asking?
No,
Because
I'm
who cares if you're in different tribes and disagree on things as long as there's not any harm coming to that other
well,
than
no,
other
because if
than
someone believes that if someone believes that we should legislate this way, and another tribe believes we should legislate that way, then we have to have dialogue.
you
So,
have dialogue and you vote. That's
but
the
if
good
you
thing.
if you
You vote.
relinquish, if you become everyone outside of my tribe as the enemy, then that's why we have these polar, extremes on the news cycles. Like that's why the right
Oh, of
sees
course.
constant, attacks on the left and vice versa.
Just using the word enemy shows that, Matt. Why do they have to be an enemy? I don't remember where I ever thought the Democrats was my enemy.
Okay, good. Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
We're
Why do we
we're
have to
right
be
at
enemies?
time. Why do we have to be enemies? What can't we all just get along?
That was terrible.
That was a 90s reference. All right.
I know it was a night. I was there, remember, in the middle
I
of it.
I remember. I love
I
you,
was
Dad.
driving home down the 110 freeway in the middle of it.
Okay, I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you to our listening audience. We hope you'll tune in next time. Until then, thank you for listening and have a great day.